My name is Jason. My dad and mom ran a small fried chicken shop in New York City. Dad, who had always dreamed of becoming a chef since he was little, finally opened the shop after borrowing money. Our family's living space was on the second floor, up the stairs from the shop. When I returned from school, it was my daily routine to dash into the kitchen at the back of the first floor, still with my backpack on, and sneak some of the fried chicken Dad made. Hold your horses, Jason. Can't you wait for dinner? But your fried chicken is just so darn good. What did you say? How good is it? The best in the States. No, the best in the world. Come on, say it's the best in the universe. Ha ha ha. He was a hearty man. Yet, his movements when frying chicken were incredibly delicate, and his fried chicken, crispy and golden, drew lines of customers to our shop every day. Remember this, Jason, no matter how hard things get, good food can help you overcome just about anything. Our home was always filled with laughter. As a little kid, I couldn't really grasp it, but now that I'm grown up, I understand. That's what you call happiness. So, if there were a time machine, I'd go back and tell my younger self, "You're incredibly happy right now, you know. So savor every day more and live it to the fullest." No, that's not right. If I could, be careful of gas leaks. That's what I tell my dad to warn. That day, I was staying over at my good friend's place. After staying up late chatting about nothing in particular, I fell into a deep sleep, exhausted. Jason. I was woken up by the voice of my friend's mom, Linda. Jason, wake up. Something terrible happened. Your house is on fire. Still half asleep, I couldn't understand what Linda was saying. The next morning, I was greeted by the sight of my house, burnt down unrecognizably. You must be Jason, right? Yes. As I stood there in shock with Linda, a police officer approached us to talk. Seeing the officer's somber expression, Linda covered her face with her hands, sensing something bad. Jason, it's very tough to tell you, but it seems my dad and mom's bodies were found in the bedroom. The cause of the fire was a gas leak. It all felt like a terribly bad dream. At that time, I was only in the 4th grade. Just when I was about to be adopted by relatives or sent to an orphanage, Sophia, a distant relative of my mom, and her husband Michael volunteered. Nice to meet you, Jason. I'm your new mom. I still vividly remember how creepy her smile looked at that time. And my intuition was right. But as a child, there was no way I could resist the hand that was offered to me. My new home was a cramped, rundown apartment. There, Michael, Sophia, and I started living together. Michael ran an online retail company, but it wasn't very profitable. He was always frustrated, glued to his computer, and his usual words to me were quiet, "Get out of the way, disappear." Only when I accidentally did something he didn't like would he turn from his computer to yell at me, "You little brat, do you know who owed your life to?" Still, Michael was somewhat bearable compared to Sophia. He was a hopeless man, but as long as I managed all the household chores perfectly and kept quiet, he mostly kept to himself. Sophia was the real problem. Driven perhaps by her unfulfilled desire for children, her obsession and control over me were extreme. She would investigate my friends in detail and dictate whom I shouldn't associate with if she disapproved of them. This was when I was 14. There was a girl who was getting along with me, but one day at school, she suddenly stopped talking to me. I later found out that Sophia had harassed her family to make sure she wouldn't hang out with me. Really, Jason, didn't I tell you that it's me who decide people you can be friends with if you hang out with kids in that apartment complex? Think about what people will say. But she is nice and kind. What? Sophia was surprised to hear me talking back, as I usually just nodded in silence. But then her face turned red, and trembling, she burst out shouting and fell into hysterics. "Why would you say that? I did it all for you. You hate me, don't you?" Irritated by this, Michael shouted not at the hysterical Sophia but at me. "Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Everything is Jason's fault. It's your fault that my work isn't going well." And so, every day was like living in hell. But what kept me alive was Dad's words. "Remember, Jason, no matter how hard things get, good food can help you overcome just about anything." After some point, I became motivated to make people happy with my cooking, just like Dad. So, while attending high school and working multiple jobs to save up tuition, I secretly enrolled in culinary school without telling my toxic parents. When they found it out, they said, "Chef is a stupid job. So, aiming for that makes you stupid too. Well, you don't have my genes." Oh, how embarrassing that my son wants to be a chef. I'll have to tell the neighbors he wants to be an entrepreneur. I could tolerate their belittling me, but insulting chefs felt like they were also mocking Dad, which I couldn't stand. Chef is an honorable profession. That day, I rebelled against my toxic parents for the first time in years. Of course, I was severely reprimanded, but I don't regret standing up for myself. Despite the hellish days with my toxic parents, I continued my studies and successfully graduated from culinary school. And finally, I managed to land a job at a fried chicken shop. It wasn't an easy path, but if Dad were alive, he'd probably roughly stroke my hair and praise me, genuinely happy. His son, who admired him, didn't give up despite the adversity and carved out his own path to be a chef. Then one day, this was when I was 22 years old, Sophia, unusually in a good mood, approached me with a cloying voice. "Jason, I've finally found the ideal woman for you." What? What a surprise! My toxic parents brought me a matchmaking. "Just leave everything to us. You just need to show up and nod in agreement." Honestly, I was totally against the idea of an arranged marriage. I wanted to focus on my job, and knowing that my happy parents married for love made me even more resistant to the idea of an arranged marriage. But I knew I had no right to refuse. If I didn't want to be on an arranged marriage, running away from home seemed like the only option. Running away from home. What an enticing thought. But I shook my head at my own idea. These toxic parents would surely chase after me, spouting things like, "After all we've done to raise you." That's what made cutting ties with them so difficult, even if I ran away. On a night filled with such heavy thoughts, I overheard my toxic parents whispering in the living room. Regarding Jason's partner, it seems she has saved up quite a lot of money. Yeah, if this marriage goes well, she might invest in my business. They were clearly talking about the woman they wanted me to meet, but saved up a lot of money. Was she the daughter of some wealthy company president? "We've raised him all this way. Jason has to be useful to us now." Apparently, they were planning to marry me off to a wealthy woman to benefit from it. I had suspected there was a catch, but so this was the reason for the arranged marriage. What do they think about my life? I can't help but wonder if they adopted me in that day just for this purpose. I opened the door to the living room. "Oh, what's up? I thought you'd gone to bed already." Seeing Michael unusually flustered, I spoke up. "I'll accept the marriage," I said. Maybe I was acting recklessly. At that moment, I was desperate to get away from my toxic parents as soon as possible. I was willing to accept the marriage I didn't want, even if it was all part of their plan. As long as I got married, I could leave this house and not have to share the same air with them. Being with them was that unbearable. On the day of the arranged meeting, my toxic parents and I entered a private room in a reserved, high-end restaurant. There was an elderly woman with white hair sitting in the room. My matchmaking partner must be her daughter, who hadn't arrived yet. Does that mean she's in her 40s? That means she is in double of my age. Regretting my decision to accept the meeting as I sat down opposite the elderly woman, I thought about how I was desperate to escape my toxic parents. My toxic parents sat down on either side of me. As soon as we sat down, Michael began, "This is my son, Jason. He might look a bit cheeky, but he's young, healthy, and can handle household chores without a single complaint, even though my matchmaking partner hadn't arrived yet. Come on, Jason, say hello. It has already started." Michael whispered urgently to me. "Already started?" I asked, confused. Seeing my astonished expression, Sophia awkwardly said to the elderly woman, "This child gets a bit nervous. Sorry about that. He's usually much more talkative and friendly." "No, I'm not friendly, and even if I were, I wouldn't enjoy chatting with you. But that wasn't important right now. Could it be? Surprised that I'm your matchmaking partner?" I was filled with despair at the elderly woman's words, her expression unchanging. She is my partner. So my toxic parents set me up with a woman who seems over 70 years old just for the money, even though I'm only 22. My vision blurred like it's warping in front of me. I knew my parents were rotten, but now I felt like throwing up. Then, she, who had been silently watching me, spoke. "Let's go outside for some fresh air," she suggested. Michael urged me to stand up. "Come on, get moving." I managed to stand, and with unsteady steps, followed her outside. Together, we stepped out into the garden. While my toxic parents were terrifying, this elderly woman, in a way, was an even bigger unknown. Did she have a fondness for young men? If it was just a wealthy person's whim, she could have chosen a man with a better face and manner, someone who would happily take her money. Then, she said something as if she could read my mind. "Don't worry, I have no intention of devouring you." Despite my caution, she continued, "You want to leave that house, don't you? I'll help you. I won't do you any harm, so follow me," she said with a sly smile. I still couldn't figure out what she in front of me was thinking. But, call it intuition. The sly smile on her face didn't seem bad. Yes, it wasn't bad. It was different from Sophia's unpleasant smile when she greeted me after I had lost my parents. Should I refuse the marriage and continue to endure the hellish days in that house? Or should I take a leap of faith with this old woman, who is extremely unfathomable? Her smile was enough to make me lean towards the latter. And so, Margaret and I got married, almost as if starting a business together. My married life with Margaret was like a mentor-apprentice relationship. She taught me about cooking. At first, I arrogantly thought, what could I, a chef, possibly learn from an amateur? But her cooking was unbelievably delicious. Deliciousness is justice. I humbly listened to her teachings and honed my skills. Margaret also meddled in my lack of romantic experience, offering various pieces of advice. What do you think makes the best date? Huh? Maybe dining at a fancy restaurant with a view of the night skyline. Not at all. Listen, the best date is having a picnic in the park with packed lunches. The woman brings warm soup, and the man brings a lunchbox filled with sandwiches and fried chicken. Fried chicken in a lunchbox. You don't get it. The ability to make delicious fried chicken that stays tasty even after it gets cold shows the skill of a chef. Yeah, I get that, but how does that have connection to the best date? If a man can make fried chicken that's delicious even after it gets cold, it's sure to make a woman's heart flutter. I couldn't help but laugh at her funny view on romance. But including all that, I quite liked Margaret. On a peaceful, sunny autumn day, she invited me on the best date. As she packed sandwiches and fried chicken into a lunchbox, I said, "Weren't the sandwiches and fried chicken supposed to be the man's job? I'm more of a man than you are, so it's fine." What's that supposed to mean? Though I was dissatisfied with her response, I couldn't deny it, so I obeyed her and made soup. With a lunchbox, we headed to a nearby park together. To anyone passing by, we must have looked like a grandmother on a stroll with her doting grandson. Nobody would guess we were a couple. Arriving at the park, we opened our lunch on picnic blankets immediately. I had eaten Margaret's cooking many times before, but it was my first time to try her fried chicken. I work at a fried chicken shop, after all. It's not going to impress me that easily. Just eat without complaining. Prompted by Margaret, I took a bite of the fried chicken. Well, it's really good. Despite being completely cold, the crispy and crunchy texture was undeniable. But soon, I realized something. This is... Got it right? Well, you barely got passing grade then. At the moment, I felt incredibly nostalgic. No doubt about it. This texture, this taste. As I devoured the fried chicken, on the verge of tears, Margaret said, "Your father learned how to make fried chicken from me, you know." I remembered my dad mentioning it once. Since I can remember, my dad's fried chicken shop had been a famous spot with queues outside of the door. But at the time he opened it was facing financial difficulties and on the verge of closing. At that time, my dad stumbled upon Margaret's shop and was so impressed by how delicious of her fried chicken was. Then he begged her to take him on as a disciple right there. My dad's shop flourished because he learned how to make fried chicken from Margaret. So, my dad always said, "I have a master to whom I can never express enough appreciation," and that master was Margaret. My dad always said he wanted to give back to you someday. What are you talking about? With anything, I'm the one who owes him. What do you mean? In the culinary industry, it's tough for women to get recognized, but when your dad's shop became famous, so did mine as his master, and it started to thrive, Margaret explained. I had no idea. So, I'm the one who owes a debt of appreciation, and yet, he passed away, leaving you, still a little boy, but well, it was good to be able to take you, his son, in this way. Margaret knew I had been adopted by my toxic parents. She had enticed my financially struggling toxic parents with her wealth and proposed marriage. Just getting you away from those people isn't enough to repay the debt. So, Jason, when I die, I'll leave all my inheritance to you. Everything I have is thanks to your father. No, I don't want the inheritance. As much as I appreciated the offer, there was something I wanted far more than money. Because my dream was, I don't need money. Instead, teach me how to make fried chicken. I want to become a chef who can rival my father. Margaret smiled, saying, "That's his son." After learning how to make fried chicken from Margaret, I could recreate the taste of the fried chicken my father made. Indeed, I became a major chef with the highest caliber, though still unknown. When I open my own shop someday, let's have the best date again. Next time you'll be the one making the fried chicken. Margaret showed me her characteristic sly smile. But that day never came. Because Margaret passed away because of cancer. She knew about her limited time and wanted to repay my father and me within her remaining life. On the day of the funeral, my toxic parents came to get their share of the inheritance. But when I handed them the document detailing the inheritance, what's this? It's all debt. It's the debt Margaret incurred when she was opening her shop. Damn, that old hag had no money. She tricked us. If we knew, we'd have married Jason off to a wealthier family. They spat out those words and left. Of course, knowing it was a negative inheritance, they decided to pretend not to know about it. As expected, my toxic parents tried to dump everything on me. It was natural there was only debt. Because Margaret had given me a substantial amount of money as a living inheritance. With that money, I was able to pay off Margaret's debts and open my own fried chicken shop. I said I didn't need the money. In the end, I received everything from Margaret. Times passed after Margaret's death, on a snowy day. I went to the park with a lunchbox to fulfill our date promise. Thanks to you, I was able to open a shop. See, my fried chicken is delicious, right? A tear rolled down my cheek. Then someone gave me a handkerchief. Here you go. Looking up, I saw a black-haired woman standing there. On a snowy, cold day far from ideal for a picnic. A woman who approaches a man crying while eating fried chicken is certainly not ordinary person. Would you like some warm soup? Soup? No, it's cold now, and this is the worst date, isn't it? She was a neighbor's daughter who Margaret was fond of, and she had mentioned me to her, saying she had someone to introduce. We looked at each other and chuckled. Margaret, you were so unfathomable woman. As for my toxic parents, damn, we spent all our savings counting on that old hag's inheritance. Let's go ask Jason for money, shall we? Have you seen his shop? It's always crowded, too many people around, and when he closes, he locks up and goes straight inside. Hey, I know you're in there. Shoot. They seem to be on the verge of fleeing at night, even struggling to find food. Feeling a bit of pity for them, I'm thinking of delivering some of my fried chicken to those foolish toxic parents someday.